The lure sitting in your tackle box right now cost you $14. The factory in Qingdao, China that made it charged the brand $2.18. The hook on it, the single piece of hardware that determines whether a fish stays on or doesn't, was swapped from a Japanese-grade steel to a zinc alloy alternative sometime between 2018 and 2021, and the brand never announced the change. You found out when the hook straightened on a 4-pound largemouth and the fish was gone. That is not bad luck. That is a documented decision made inside a boardroom you will never see by a fund manager who has never held a rod. Pure Fishing, the conglomerate that owns more than 30 fishing brands, Berkley, Abu Garcia, Shakespeare, Penn, among others, was acquired by Sycamore Partners, a private equity firm, in 2021 for approximately $1.3 billion. Sycamore's portfolio also includes Staples and Torrid. They are not fishing people. They are margin people. And the lure market is one of the cleanest margin opportunities in all of outdoor retail. High perceived value, low manufacturing cost, zero federal safety regulation on hook grade, and a consumer base loyal enough to buy the same SKU for 20 years without asking what's inside. Before we get into the ranking, two things you need to know. One of the lures on this list was reformulated after its parent company's acquisition. Same color codes, same SKU number, different internal weighting, and a hook downgrade that dropped hookup rates by a measurable percentage in controlled tank tests. Another lure on this list has a name licensed from a tournament angler who retired in 2009. The man has not fished competitively since. His name is on a lure made in a factory he has never visited, and he collects royalties on every unit sold. 7 lures will be ranked today. The criteria are component integrity verified against OEM sourcing data, action consistency based on third-party tank and field tests, cost to retail markup where OEM estimates are available, resale value retention on platforms like eBay and Tackle Direct's used section, and field validation by tournament anglers with no documented sponsorship from the brand in question. At the end, the 3 that actually earn their price. The 2 that tournament anglers carry in their bag and never mention on camera. Stay through the end. We start at the bottom. The lure that sells the cheapest promise at the highest price. Let's talk about the Rapala Original Floating Minnow. Not the one your grandfather used. The one on the shelf at Bass Pro today. These are different objects. The original Rapala was hand-carved in Finland by Lauri Rapala from Cork and Balsa, each one tuned by hand in the river until the action was right. That version was genuine. What is on the shelf now is a product manufactured in Estonia and China, owned by Rapala VMC Corporation, which is publicly traded on the Helsinki Stock Exchange and has been operating under margin pressure since its peak revenue years in the early 2010s. As of its most recent annual report, Rapala VMC reported declining volume in North America with cost rationalization as a stated strategic priority. Cost rationalization in manufacturing language means component substitution. The balsa construction on many current production runs has been confirmed by multiple sources to be inconsistent. Thicker walls on some units, different buoyancy profiles across same SKU batches, a phenomenon documented by users on Bass Resource forums under threads titled New Rapala F07 Acting Weird. And anyone else notice the action is off on recent Rapalas, dating from 2020 through 2023. The hook on the current standard. Original Floating is a VMC hook. VMC is a Rapala-owned brand, so the vertical integration looks efficient until you understand that VMC hooks in the standard grade are not the same specification as VMC hooks sold separately as replacements. The treble on the included lure tests at a lighter wire gauge. A post on iBoats by user Delta Flats Angler in 2022 documented using a digital caliper to measure wire diameter on stock lures versus replacement VMC hooks. The difference was approximately 0.08 millimeters, small on paper, catastrophic on a running fish. Retail price on the FCE in $11 to $13. OEM cost estimate based on comparable balsa construction lures sourced from Chinese manufacturers with similar specifications, approximately $1.90 to $2.40 per unit at volume. That is a markup between 450 and 580%. The lure still catches fish. That is not the argument. The argument is that at $11 you are paying for a mythology, not a lure. The name on the package is a museum. The lure inside is an assembly line. That is what you are buying. Move up the shelf and you find Strike King's KVD Sexy Dog. The KVD stands for Kevin Van Dam, four-time Bassmaster Classic champion, one of the most decorated freshwater tournament anglers in the history of the sport. Van Dam is legitimately credentialed. The lure, however, is a different matter. Strike King is owned by EBSCO Industries, a private holding company based in Birmingham, Alabama. EBSCO also owns office supply distribution businesses, magazine subscription services, and various unrelated holdings. It is a conglomerate in the original sense, not a fishing company. The KVD Sexy Dog is a walking topwater bait priced between $10 and $13 retail. Its hook hardware, the split rings connecting the treble hooks to the lure body, has been identified in multiple forum discussions on Tackle Warehouse's community section and Reddit's RBOC base fishing as a weak point. User Surface Tension Fisher on Reddit documented in a 2023 post that split rings on 3 consecutive out-of-package units measured at a thinner gauge than the KVD branded split rings sold separately as replacements. The KVD licensing arrangement means Van Dam receives royalties on each unit. The exact figure is not public, but industry standard for name-licensed fishing tackle runs between 3 and 7% of wholesale. At scale, this is meaningful revenue disconnected from quality control. The walking action is acceptable in warm water conditions. In water below 58 degrees Fahrenheit, the bait's buoyancy profile causes it to roll rather than walk. This is a physics issue related to the internal weight distribution, documented in tank comparisons posted by fishing content creators on Tackle Warehouse's review section, with at least 4 independent reviewers noting the same cold water rolling behavior. At $13, you are paying for a name and getting a lure optimized for tournament conditions that Van Dam fishes in late spring and summer. The lure that does not tell you that is a lure making an incomplete argument. You deserve the complete one. The pattern that repeats itself is always the same. The name on the package grows, the component inside it does not. Now to the Zoom Trick Worm. Zoom Bait Company was founded in Georgia and built its reputation on soft plastic consistency and scent infusion. A legitimate reputation earned in the 1990s and early 2000s when the brand was independent. The Trick Worm became a foundational drop shot and wacky rig bait, endorsed by tournament use without paid promotion because it simply worked. In 2019, Zoom was acquired by Pure Fishing, the same Sycamore Partners-backed conglomerate mentioned at the top. Post-acquisition soft plastic formulation changes at acquired brands are not unusual and are not always negative, but in Zoom's case, forum documentation suggests the change was not neutral. On Bass Resources Soft Plastics Forum, a thread titled Zoom Quality Going Downhill started in late 2020, accumulated over 340 responses through 2023. With multiple anglers documenting increased brittleness on the bait's tail section, reduce scent intensity measurable by the bait's out-of-package off-gassing period, and inconsistency in color saturation across same-bag purchases. The trick worm retails for approximately $5 to $6 per bag of 20. The OEM cost for injection molded soft plastic lures at this volume runs between 40 and 70 cents per bag, depending on formulation quality. That is still a viable margin at the independent level. At the conglomerate level, the pressure is to widen it further. Whether Zoom's formulation changed because of that pressure or for unrelated reasons is not provable from public data. What is provable is that the angler complaints are documented, the acquisition timeline is documented, and the bait's performance reputation from 2015 is not interchangeable with its performance reputation from 2022. When a brand is sold, its history does not transfer. Its name does. The name is not the bait. Here, the pattern changes. Not in the packaging, in the numbers. The Booyah Pad Crasher is a hollow-bodied frog lure, retailing between $9 and $11, competing directly with Live Target and SPRO in the hollow frog category. Booyah is a Strike King brand, same EBSCO Industries parent, and the Pad Crasher has occupied an interesting position in the market. Priced below premium frogs, consistently reviewed as competitive in hookup ratio, but with documented hook quality variation across production runs. User FrogmanFL on the Bass Fishing homepage forums posted a 2022 review documenting that his first 3 pad crashers from a single retailer all had hooks that required manual sharpening out of the package, a quality control indicator rather than a design failure. That distinction matters. The frog body itself, the soft, hollow shell that compresses on the strike to expose the hook points, is made from a polymer blend that has tested well in durability comparisons. A 2021 comparison published by fishing media outlet Wire2Fish evaluated hook exposure, compression force required for hook set, and body durability across 7 hollow frogs, and the Pad Crasher ranked 3rd overall behind SPRO and Live Target, but ahead of 4 other brands including Snag Proof. The hook replacement cost on a Pad Crasher using Gamakatsu EWG hooks is approximately $3 to $4, roughly a third of the lure's retail price. Anglers who replace hooks out of the package report significantly improved hookup ratios. This is a lure that is performing adequately with a correctable flaw. That is different from the lures in the previous tier, where the flaw is the product. The Pad Crasher at $11 with a $4 hook upgrade is a $15 frog that competes with $20 frogs. That math is honest. The brand's failure to ship it with proper hooks is not. The Live Target hollow body frog occupies a different category than anything discussed so far. Live Target is a Canadian company founded by Larry Ramsell and later developed under the direction of a team focused on hyper-realistic bait aesthetics. The brand's identity is built on anatomical accuracy, with each lure modeled on specific prey species using proprietary photo imaging technology to replicate scale, fin, and color detail at a level other manufacturers do not attempt. The hollow body frog retails between $14 and $17, making it the most expensive hollow frog in the mainstream market. Whether that premium is justified requires going past the visuals. The hook on the Live Target frog is a dual hook system using hooks that test at a wire gauge comparable to Gamakatsu aftermarket replacements. This is not a coincidence, as Live Target has confirmed hook sourcing from premium Japanese suppliers in trade publications. A 2021 Wired2Fish comparison placed Live Target first in hookup rate among 7 hollow frogs tested in a controlled vegetation environment over 40 hours of fishing time, with a documented hookup percentage of 68% versus a category average of 51%. The body compression profile, the force required to collapse the bait on the hook set, was measured as the most consistent across a 10-unit sample, with variance of less than 8% between units. LiveATarget was acquired by Rapala VMC in 2016. This is the same Rapala VMC under margin pressure discussed earlier in this ranking. Post-acquisition production changes at LiveATarget have not generated the same forum documentation of quality decline seen at other Rapala-acquired brands. The Frog line specifically has maintained independent quality signals through at least 2023. Whether that holds going forward is a question Rapala's financial reporting will answer before the product does. For now, the data supports the premium, not the name, the data. Before the top of this ranking, one structural fact that changes how you read every lure brand going forward. The fishing tackle industry in the United States is dominated by two holding companies, Pure Fishing and Rapala VMC, that between them own the majority of brands you can name at a retail counter: Berkley, Abu Garcia, Shakespeare, Penn, Ugly Stick, Fenwick, Mitchell, Pflueger, Rapala, VMC, Storm, Lure Jensen, LiveATarget. These are not competitors. They are departments. The illusion of competition on the retail shelf is a real illusion. Each brand is a separate SKU strategy, pointed at a different price point consumer, all managed by the same margin model. This matters for lure buying because it means that when you pick up a Berkley Power Bait and a Storm Wildeye and a Rapala Original, you are not choosing between three companies. You are choosing between three packaging decisions made by people at the same table. The lures that escape this structure are not cheap. They are not mass distributed. They are not at Bass Pro on the front rack. They are at specialty retailers, in tournament angler bags, on fishing boat gunnels in states where the water is serious. One of them is Next. Megabass is a Japanese company founded in 1993 by Yuki Ito, a trained industrial designer who approached lure construction as an engineering problem rather than a marketing one. Ito is still the creative director. The company is still founder-led. Megabass lures are manufactured in Japan under direct quality control, with each production run subject to tank testing protocols that the company has described in Japanese trade publications. Protocols that include individual lure swim testing at production, not batch sampling. The Vision 110 lipless jerkbait retails between $22 and $28 at U.S. specialty retailers. The hook hardware is Katsuag, a Megabass proprietary hook that tests at a wire diameter and tensile strength specification higher than any included hook tested on lures priced below $30 in this ranking. The split rings are stainless steel, not zinc alloy. A 2020 independent test published by fishing media outlet Tactical Bassin compared the 110's action consistency across a 15-unit sample at three temperature ranges, 45 degrees, 62 degrees, and 72 degrees, and documented action deviation of less than 12% across all 15 units at all three temperatures. The category average in the same test was 34% deviation. Tournament validation without sponsorship. The 110 has been documented in the tackle inventories of Bassmaster Elite Series anglers who are not listed as Megabass paid partners, including equipment lists submitted to tournament officials in 2019 and 2021. The markup on a Megabass lure is real. The OEM cost on a precision-manufactured Japanese hardbait at low volume runs between $6 and $9 per unit, a markup of roughly 200 to 300%, versus the 450 to 600% on the lures at the bottom of this list. That is the difference between a margin built on manufacturing discipline and a margin built on name equity. One of them you are paying for. The other you are investing in. Across all 7 lures in this ranking, one pattern holds without exception. The brands that underperform are not failing because they lack engineering talent. They are failing because the people who own them have no financial incentive to improve the product. A private equity fund with a 5 to 7 year exit horizon does not benefit from a lure that lasts 8 years. It benefits from a lure that sells at maximum margin for 4 years and then gets replaced by the consumer who does not know why it stopped working. The brands that perform are the ones where the person who designed the lure is still in the building, still subject to the consequence of a bad hook, still fishing the water they are designing for. That is not sentimentality. That is an incentive alignment you can measure in hook gauge and action consistency and resale value. Here is the checklist you apply before buying any lure at any price. First, who owns the brand? If the answer is a private equity fund or a multi-brand conglomerate with non-fishing holdings, the default assumption is that component quality has been or will be optimized downward. That assumption requires disproof before you spend. Second, has the hook specification changed since acquisition or since the last major ownership event? This is findable. Forum threads on Bass Resource, iBoats, and R Bass Fishing document these changes in real time from anglers who use calipers and pull test scales. If the thread exists, read it before you buy. Third, is the product validation you are seeing sponsored or organic? An angler with a brand logo on his shirt is a marketing channel, not a field test. Unsponsored tournament equipment lists, often published by tournament bodies as required disclosure, are the closest thing to honest validation the market offers. Fourth, does the lure's price reflect its manufacturing location and volume? A Japanese manufactured precision bait at $25 is a different cost structure than a Chinese manufactured injection molded bait at $12. Both can be worth their price. Neither is automatically worth it based on the number alone. The question is whether the price matches the manufacturing reality, not the brand mythology. One thing to close with. The best lure you have ever used. The one you reached for on a tournament morning. The one that sat at the bottom of your box for 10 years because you were afraid to lose it. What brand was it? Not the one on the package. Who made it? Where? And when? If you know the answer, put it in the comments. If the answer surprises you, that is the point of this entire ranking.